When a woman says I'm fine, it's rarely about being fine. In fact, these are two of the most revealing words a woman uses right before she begins to pull away or shift the emotional dynamic in a relationship. And what makes these words so powerful is not the words themselves, but the emotional silence behind them. Silence can say more than 1,000 explanations. Distance can say what the tongue refuses to admit. And I'm fine is often her way of masking emotional tension she doesn't yet feel safe expressing. Women are emotionally intuitive by nature. They feel deeply, and when they care about someone, they usually communicate openly. But when something shifts, whether it's disappointment, unmet expectations, or the fear that she might be losing you or her own emotional footing, she often retreats behind a phrase that allows her to hide without causing conflict. I'm fine becomes a shield, not to deceive you, but to protect herself. Psychologically, this response signals emotional shutdown. It's her way of testing whether you can sense the energy beneath the words, because to her, if she has to spell everything out, it means you're not paying attention. It means you're not attuned. And emotional attunement is a woman's silent measure of whether a man truly gets her. But here's the deeper layer most men miss. When she says, I'm fine, she's not expecting you to interrogate her or panic. She's watching your emotional posture. She wants to see whether you become reactive or whether you remain grounded. A grounded man doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't pressure. He observes, he listens, he makes space. And in that space, she feels safe enough to reveal what's really happening beneath the surface. Many men respond to, I'm fine with fear. Fear of losing her, fear of having done something wrong, fear of conflict. That fear leads to over-explaining, pushing for answers, or trying to fix problems that haven't been articulated. Ironically, that pressure only pushes her further away, because when a woman is emotionally guarded, she doesn't want solutions. She wants presence. She wants to feel that you are emotionally stable even when she is not. The truth is, I'm fine is not the problem. The problem is how you interpret it. If you take it literally, you miss the entire emotional message. If you react desperately, you reinforce her belief that you can't handle emotional tension. But if you stay calm, patient, and confident, she slowly relaxes because she senses your strength. A woman will always test not your words, but your stability. She wants to know, can you remain centered even when the emotional waters get rough? Because if you can't, she knows she'll have to manage both her emotions and yours, and no woman wants to carry that burden. So what should you do when she says, I'm fine? You acknowledge the words, but you respond to the emotion. You don't accuse her of lying. You don't demand she explain herself. You simply offer presence. Something like, if something feels off, I'm here when you're ready to talk. Then step back. Not coldly, but confidently. That small moment of emotional leadership often shifts everything. She'll feel seen without being pressured. This is the deeper truth. Women don't pull away suddenly. They pull away quietly. And I'm fine is the whisper before the silence. If you learn to hear the whisper, you can change the entire trajectory of the relationship. Your ability to stay steady when she withdraws is not just emotional intelligence. It's masculine leadership. It's the difference between being played and being respected. There's a particular phrase women use when they're shifting emotionally, and it often slips past men because it sounds harmless, even polite. It's the moment she says, do whatever you want. On the surface, it sounds like freedom, like she's giving you space or letting you make your own decisions. But if you listen more closely, not to the words, but to the emotional temperature behind them, you'll notice something deeper. This phrase almost never comes from a place of indifference. It comes from a place of emotional withdrawal. Do whatever you want is not permission. It's a signal, a sign that she's stepping back, observing and recalibrating her expectations of you. When a woman is emotionally invested, she cares about your actions. She cares about how your decisions affect the relationship, the connection, and the emotional environment between you. So when she suddenly tells you to do whatever you want, it's because something in her has shifted. She is no longer trying to guide the connection. She's watching how you handle it when she stops directing your choices psychologically. This phrase is layered with frustration, disappointment, and emotional fatigue. It's her way of saying she's tired of repeating herself. She's tired of explaining what she needs. She's tired of feeling like her emotions are not being received. So instead of fighting, instead of expressing more, she retreats behind indifference, real or performed, to protect her heart. Women test less through conflict and more through silence. They don't always challenge you directly. They step back to see what you will naturally do without being prompted and do whatever you want. Is one of those moments where she creates distance to observe your character. But here's the part most men misunderstand. She's not hoping you will actually do whatever you want. She's hoping you will show who you are when she stops guiding your behavior. Will you act out of impulse or out of integrity? Will you choose respect or convenience? Will you maintain the emotional standards she hoped you understood by now? This is why reacting defensively doesn't help. Getting irritated, arguing, or trying to prove she's overreacting only deepens her sense that you aren't truly aware of her emotional world. Instead, what she needs is not an apology you don't understand or a promise you can't keep. What she needs is leadership, calm, thoughtful leadership that comes from a place of confidence, not panic. The response to do whatever you want is not to push, it's not to interrogate her, and it's certainly not to act as if her words mean nothing. The real response is to pause, evaluate your behavior objectively, and demonstrate through action, not speech, that you care about the impact of your decisions. That might mean setting clearer boundaries for yourself. It might mean showing consistency in areas where you've been unpredictable. Or it might simply mean being emotionally present instead of drifting through the relationship on autopilot. The deeper truth is that when a woman says, do whatever you want, she's giving you a preview of what detachment looks like. It's the beginning of emotional disengagement. If you ignore it, the distance grows. If you respond with maturity, the connection strengthens. This moment tests your emotional awareness. It tests your responsibility. It tests whether you're the kind of man she can trust, not just during easy moments, but during the subtle, unspoken tensions that define real intimacy. And if you take nothing else from this, remember this: when she stops guiding you, she's asking you to reveal who you really are. There's another phrase women use right before they play you, and it's one that many men overlook because it sounds supportive. It sounds sweet. It sounds like she's encouraging you. But beneath the surface, it carries a completely different meaning. It's when she says, I understand. Now, you might think comprehension is a good thing, and in a healthy connection, it is. But this version of I understand doesn't come from clarity. It comes from resignation. It's not the understanding that brings two people closer. It's the understanding that someone develops when they finally accept that you're not going to change. When a woman genuinely understands you, she becomes more engaged, more curious, more present. But when she uses I understand as a shield, she's not expressing acceptance, she's expressing emotional withdrawal. It's her way of saying, I see who you are now, and I'm adjusting my expectations accordingly. This shift is subtle, but it's powerful because women rarely vocalize disappointment directly unless they're pushed to a breaking point. Instead, they internalize, analyze, and adapt. I understand is the adaptation. It means she has stopped trying to ask for more. She has stopped hoping for a different outcome. She has stopped believing that her needs will be met if she communicates them one more time. And that is the quiet space where many men get played, not out of malice, but out of emotional closure. She's already begun disconnecting from the relationship while you're still assuming everything is fine. You might hear the words and feel relieved, thinking the issue is resolved. But for her, it's confirmation. It's acceptance. It's the first step toward distancing herself emotionally so she can walk away without being shattered. Women don't ignore red flags. And men, they try to work through them. They communicate, hint, guide, and give time. But once they feel unheard long enough, they stop explaining. And when a woman stops explaining, she starts preparing for an exit. I understand becomes the turning point where her emotional investment starts shifting from you to herself. It's what allows her to detach without guilt. It's what lets her redirect her energy. And once she reaches that emotional clarity, she's no longer trying to fix anything. You're simply watching her transition from caring to calculating. But here's the deeper layer. This phrase isn't just a sign that she's pulling away. It's also a mirror for you. Because the question isn't whether she understands you. The question is whether you understand the impact of your actions, whether you understand the way she feels when she expresses something important and you minimize it, whether you understand how repeated disappointment turns into emotional numbness. If you can't understand her, she will learn to understand life without you. The moment she says, I understand, your response shouldn't be defensiveness or relief. It should be awareness, not an apology thrown out of fear, not a promise you won't keep, but a genuine recognition of what she has been trying to communicate long before that moment. Pause and trace her words backwards. What was she trying to tell you before she said, I understand? What pattern kept repeating? What emotional need was consistently overlooked? Because women don't shut down out of nowhere. They shut down after being unheard for too long. So the lesson here isn't just to interpret her words, it's to interpret her emotional silence, because silence is never empty. It's filled with all the things she once hoped you would understand without her having to say them again. And when you hear those two quiet words, remember this: her unda. Her standing is not your victory, it's your warning. Here is your 600-word expansion of key point 4. Written in the same calm, intellectual, emotionally intelligent Jessica Opare-style tone you've been using throughout the speech. There's a certain phrase women use when they're right on the edge of checking out emotionally, and yet they don't want to reveal what's really going on inside. It's short, it's casual, and it slips through conversations almost unnoticed. It's when she says, "Do whatever you want." Now, on the surface, it sounds like freedom, like she's giving you space, like she doesn't want to micromanage your choices. But underneath that calm exterior lies something far more telling. Because women don't say do whatever you want when they actually feel secure, valued, or emotionally included. They say it when they feel dismissed. They say it when they feel unheard. They say it when their feelings have been reduced to something optional. This phrase is rarely about the moment itself. It's about everything that came before it, all the small dismissals, the subtle disagreements, the moments when she tried to express something meaningful and you brushed it aside, intentionally or not. It's a quiet accumulation of emotional exhaustion. The reason it stings, though many men don't recognize it, is that it's not truly permission, it's surrender. She's not giving you the freedom to choose, she's giving up trying to guide the relationship. She's telling you without saying it directly that she no longer feels like her voice makes a difference. And this is where a lot of men misinterpret the situation. They think the argument is resolved because she backed down. They think she's fine because she stopped pushing. But in reality, she's withdrawing. She's learning how not to care. Women don't detach loudly. They detach in silence, in distance, and in emoji. Onal minimalism. Do whatever you want is the early sign of this emotional detachment. It's her way of saying, my feelings have taken enough hits, and I'm stepping back to protect myself. There's also a deeper psychological layer here. When a woman reaches this stage, she's testing something, not you, but herself. She's testing whether she can live with a version of you that consistently overlooks her emotional needs. She's testing whether the emotional effort she's been investing is still worth it. She's testing whether the relationship is something she should continue holding on to or something she should start letting go of quietly. And what's interesting is that she's not expecting you to read her mind. What she hopes, often desperately, is that you'll recognize the shift, that you'll hear the frustration behind the calm tone, that you'll feel the distance behind the words. Because once she stops trying to be understood, the relationship is already halfway out the door. The tragedy is that many men only wake up once the exit is complete. Once she's emotionally done, long before she physically leaves. They look back thinking everything was fine because she stopped arguing, when in reality, she stopped believing the conversation mattered. So what should a man do when he hears those words? Not react defensively, not match the emotional withdrawal, and definitely not take it literally and do whatever he wants. The real solution is emotional presence. It's pausing long enough to acknowledge her feelings instead of escaping them. It's opening a space where her voice can be heard without becoming a battlefield. It's choosing curiosity over control, connection over convenience. Because relationships don't fall apart when people disagree. They fall apart when one person feels like their inner world has become irrelevant. So when she says, do whatever you want, Don, take it as permission. Take it as information. Take it as an emotional signal that something deeper needs attention. And remember this, her surrender is not the end of the argument. It's the beginning of the end of the connection. Here is your 600-word expansion of key point 5, written in the same deep, psychologically driven Jessica Opare-style tone, flowing naturally with the rest of the speech. Another word men often overlook, yet is one of the clearest warnings that a woman is about to play you, is when she starts saying, I'm not ready. Now, the dangerous part isn't the phrase itself, it's how casually she uses it and how many conflicting behaviors surround it. Because a woman who genuinely isn't ready tends to slow things down with clarity, openness, and honesty. But a woman who says she's not ready while continuing to take from you emotionally, mentally, or even physically is signaling something different entirely. She's signaling hesitation wrapped in convenience. When a woman tells you she's not ready, but she still wants your attention, your time, your emotional energy, and your presence. She isn't trying to protect the relationship. She's trying to protect her options. It's a soft boundary that benefits her but traps you, a pause button she never intends to release. And for many men, this phrase triggers something powerful inside, the desire to prove themselves. They start working harder, showing up more, being more patient, more giving, more available, all in the hope that she will eventually say yes. But the problem is that this pursuit rarely creates attraction. It creates a dynamic where she becomes the chooser and you become the constant provider of emotional supply. She gets the validation, you get the waiting room. It's the emotional version of holding someone just close enough to keep them from leaving, but far enough to AVO. ID commitment. This phrase is subtle manipulation, not because she's trying to hurt you, but because she's unsure of what she wants while fully aware of what you're willing to give. Many women fall into this pattern unconsciously. It feels safe for them. It removes the pressure of making a decision while still granting access to the comfort of your presence. And here's the deeper psychological layer. "I'm not ready" is a shield a woman uses when she doesn't want to reject you outright because she still values the benefits of your presence. It's a way of avoiding guilt. She knows you're a good man. She knows you care. She knows you're serious. So instead of saying, "I'm not interested," she says, "I'm not ready," giving herself a softer emotional exit while giving you false hope disguised as patience. The danger for men is the emotional investment that grows in this limbo. Every day you stay, your attachment deepens, your expectations grow, and your perception of her becomes idealized. Meanwhile, she keeps collecting the emotional fruits of your effort without planting any seeds of her own. This imbalance slowly erodes your self-worth, making you believe that if you just try a little harder, she'll eventually pick you. But a woman who wants you doesn't need time to decide. She may need time to build a deeper bond, yes, but she doesn't need time to acknowledge her desire. Desire is instinctive. Interest is immediate. Effort is natural. When she truly wants you, "I'm not ready" isn't a phrase she leans on. Instead, she leans into the connection, into the communication, into the possibilities. So when you hear "I'm not ready," don't get stuck interpreting her words. Pay attention to her patterns. Is she moving toward you or away from you? Is she giving as much as she is receiving? Is she building something or simply benefiting from what you've already built? Your emotional clarity is your protection. Your self-respect is your filter. And your willingness to walk away from ambiguity is what ultimately reveals who was genuine and who was simply passing time. So remember this: a woman who is truly ready for you rarely needs to say it. And a woman who isn't will never become ready just because you wait. Here you go. A full 600-word expansion of Key Point 6, written in the tone, flow, and depth you asked for, aligned with Jessica Opare's smooth, intelligent, psychologically grounded delivery. When a woman says something vague, evasive, or emotionally confusing, that moment becomes a mirror. Not a mirror that reflects who she is, but a mirror that reflects who you become under pressure. And this is where most men unknowingly fail the test. They react from emotion instead of intention. They rush to fix instead of observe. They try harder instead of holding their ground. But the truth is, women don't evaluate your words in these moments. They evaluate your emotional stability. They're watching to see whether you collapse, chase, or detach too quickly. Because inconsistency under pressure reveals what no conversation ever could. A woman who plans to play you doesn't need to lie in a complicated way. She just needs to create small moments of uncertainty and then watch what you do with them. She'll say, "Let's just see where this goes," or "I'm not ready for anything serious," or "I just need some time." And she'll deliver those lines casually, almost effortlessly, as if they don't carry weight, but they do. They're designed to shift the emotional balance. They're designed to put you in a position where you're hoping, waiting, and proving. The minute you start performing for clarity, she knows she has power. And here's the deeper psychological truth. People only play those they sense will not walk away. If your presence feels guaranteed, your value becomes negotiable. Women, especially the ones who are unsure of what they want, will push boundaries to see which ones bend, which ones hold, and which ones only exist in your imagination. This is why your response becomes more important than her words. You don't need to confront, accuse, or argue. You only need to demonstrate that your self-respect is not up for negotiation. Instead of reacting with emotion, slow down the moment. Listen to what she said, but pay more attention to the intention behind it. Is she being honest? Is she creating space to think? Or is she setting the stage to keep you emotionally invested while she remains emotionally free? When you observe instead of chase, you give yourself the clarity that chasing can never give you. Observation makes you powerful because it gives you information. Chasing makes you powerless because it puts you in a position where you're acting without direction. And this is where your inner discipline becomes essential. You must be willing to let the wrong woman leave. You must be willing to let a situation end rather than buying your way back into it with effort, reassurance, or emotional labor. A man who cannot walk away cannot lead a relationship, and a man who cannot lead will always find himself controlled by someone else's uncertainty. When she gives you those 4 words that hint at distance, confusion, or hesitation, respond with clarity, not attachment. You can acknowledge what she said without giving up your position. You can say, "I hear you," and then continue living your life with the same confidence you had before the conversation. You can communicate interest without sacrificing dignity, and you can stay emotionally available without becoming emotionally dependent. By doing this, you accomplish something most men never even attempt. You shift the dynamic quietly, powerfully, and without resistance. You show her that you are a man who desires connection but does not fear loss, a man who listens but does not chase, a man who stays open but not exposed. And that contrast, strength without aggression, softness without surrender, is what compels a woman to choose you instead of play you, because in the end, being played isn't about what she says, it's about what you allow. Every woman respects the man who respects himself first, and the moment you demonstrate that self-respect, the game stops, not because she changed, but because you did. And if you take nothing else from this, take this. The moment you stop fearing her leaving is the moment she finally sees your value.